Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a disassembly maintenance video for you on this little guy right here. This is the this is the James Brand Barnes. Now you're gonna look at this knife. You gotta go, Nick. Okay, titanium frame lock. What's different? This is what's different. This is an integral pocket knife, but more importantly, yeah, it's an integral. That's fine, but it's a weird one. Look at the clip. How's that clip attach? You see these holes in the back. Like, oh, there must be screws in there. There are not. Those are the lanyard hole. In fact, the clip attaches via this screw inside there. Do you have to remove the clip? No, you shouldn't. But nonetheless, that's how that works. And there's only one screw that we ever need to deal with, and that is the pivot here. These guys are for your lock bar insert. You never need to unscrew those guys. But anyways, we're going to go on ahead and take this guy apart and see how this works. I am betting that this side comes off. Well, actually, I know for damn sure that this side comes off. But yeah, so, and with it is going to come off this little plate. This plate may look like it is unimportant or just a stylistic touch, but it is not. This plate actually is the thing that allows them to cover this little bit right here, which is the stop pin. That is the thing that keeps the blade from going too far across, right? And without that stop pin being removable, the knife would not be super disassemblable or assemblable to start with, right? So the goal here is... That's weird. What's weirding me out here is either the pivot hole in the blade is very large or there's something else going on in here, right? Because this looks very, very large. The question just becomes, if I push on this, does something come out? Like, does it come out the other side? So I'm going to release the pressure on the blade. It's moving. Is it just the case that we have a very large pivot here? Maybe. What I'm going to go ahead and do is use this little tool here. This is a watch spring bar tool. I'm going to apply a little pressure to the bottom of the pivot. That doesn't feel like it wants to come out. I'm going to be very careful here because this is a not cheap knife, but I want to see and look on the inside here and see whether this is actually going to come out or not, and see if I get any hints at all as to what's going on the inside here. Because at some level, this should just press right through, but it doesn't seem to want to immediately. And it could be that I'm not using enough force. It's a very real possibility. But it could also be that there's something else going on here that I'm not aware of. So the next step that I'm going to try here is actually going to be to unscrew the back side of this, which appears to be maybe a T6. Okay, this is weird. This is very weird. So the back side of the pivot is T6. The front side of the pivot is T8 from the looks of it. And, well, no, actually the back side, the clip side is the T8. This screw removes this piece here, whereas this screw allows the pivot to push through to the other side. This is why it did not want to move when I was pushing through, and it was a little bit large for this to be the pivot itself. So what I should be able to do now, actually, is to just press this out. Good. So, see, now this is coming loose. And when I do that, I should be able to then pull the blade itself out. There we go. The bearings come with it. One of the bearings is missing. That's hilarious. They installed a bearing that's missing a bearing. Usually that's not a thing you see happening, but, you know, hey, there it is. Okay, and it turns out we don't actually have to remove the stop pin, so in theory, we might... No, actually, we would have still needed to remove this in order to get this pivot out. So you do need to remove both sides. But that's very unusual. That kind of construction is a little bit odd. It's not bad, it's just different, right? And this is part of the reason why, and I say this all the damn time, you want to make sure that as you are disassembling something, anything, you want to make sure that you are not just using a bunch of brute force and not just like, okay, that must be the pivot, push. Because I could have actually damaged something had I just gone in there with full gronk and shoved everything out. So at the moment, I'm just getting in there with a Q-tip and I'm cleaning out the area where the the blade, sits, cleaning off the detent ball and such. Let's go on ahead and clean this off. No sign of that bearing. It looks like they just grabbed the bearing out of the bucket, and that one didn't have a bearing in, like, one of the things installed. I don't really think that should matter too much, but it's not a great look, absolutely. And yeah. And then we'll go on ahead and take this guy, clean this out here and here. Beautiful. I'm going to want to clean the bearings a little bit too. Oh, this cloth is already dirty. I just finished another disassembly. So, but anyways, yeah, make sure you don't just go straight to brute force when you're doing these kinds of things. Otherwise, you're very liable to damage what you're working with here. These are increasingly precision tools, right? Or at least they're put together like precision tools. And as a result, if you treat them like, well, chunks of iron, you're not going to have a good time, right? You might end up breaking them, and that's not a beautiful thing. And there's just no need of it, right? A little bit of caution here. So, okay. What I'm going to go ahead and do is we are cleaned up. We're ready to go. A little weird integral aside, this is just an integral, so there's not too much to worry about. I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit of lubrication right here for the bearings, and a little bit of lubrication here for the bearings. And then I'll go ahead and reinstall the bearings. Drop you here, drop you here. All right, I'm also going to go on ahead and put a little bit of lubrication into the detent ball hole here, which will distribute itself along the detent ball path naturally, as it should. And I'm going to then, I'm going to go ahead and slip this back in. So the goal here is I've put this back together like a sandwich. The goal is just to feed it in such that the bearings go in the right place and position, and then to push everything in so that I can then, I should clean off this pivot as well, so we can see a little bit of gunk is built up on there. I don't mind the construction here. It took me a second to figure out what was going on, because it's not usually the case. I guess I should have noticed from the fact that it was tooled on the other side that it probably wasn't just a push-through pivot, but still. Go ahead and put a little lubrication onto this guy. That will help not only with the action of the knife, but it will help with the insertion of the pivot. Okay, I'm doing this right. This side goes in this side, then this screw goes. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to lift the lock bar. This is important. The knife is not going to, the pivot won't want to go in place with the lock bar in position, right? And then I'm just going to kind of move the blade a little bit. And this is canted to an angle. I don't want that. I'm just kind of moving the blade a little bit, and I'm being careful here because I have a live blade in my hand. There we go. I'm just moving things around with that lock bar lifted until it wants to snap itself through. Now at this stage, what I do is I take a look-see. I say, okay, all the bearings look like they're in. Obviously, they should be. There's no bearings left anywhere. And I can actually, at this point, even actuate the knife. Yeah, looks good. Now what I do is I'll take some blue thread locker. Come here, thread locker. Beautiful. That was so unusual construction. But hey, was that T8? Oh, that's because I'm looking at the wrong damn side. This guy is T6 over here. And then I have not seen an integral designed in this way. Not saying I've seen every integral knife, but I've probably seen more integral knives than most. I've probably disassembled more than that. So, but then the question becomes, which part of this is controlling the tension? Well, there's no blade play, and the action is beautiful. So, we're good to go. Now what I do is I align this. This is not symmetrical. That looks like the approach. I want to make sure my stop pin is fully seated in there, right? Don't want that popping up. And then I'm picturing the people from the James Brand watching this disassembly at first, like, Nick, no, don't push on it. Unscrew the other side. Like, I feel like I should, well, I don't know any apologies, but at some level, I'm sure I put some of the makers through stress watching me take apart their babies. Anyways, I digress. So then let's go on ahead. Okay, and then with that installed, I can fully torque that down, but I don't really need to particularly, because this has no blade play. Actually, I might detorque it a little bit. Which side do I turn? this side, I believe. Let's loosen that up just a smidge. Yeah, that's freer. No blade play. Nice. Beautiful dead-centered action. Easy enough. Just need to know the trick, and the trick, as in all things, is to be gentle at first, and then when force is required, administer it judiciously. That's not a terrible approach to life, generally speaking. But nonetheless, there we go. So that is this little guy, the Barnes. And do I want to loosen that just a little more? I'm going to see if I can get away with loosening it a little more. Feels like there's maybe a little more resistance there than this was when we started. Yeah, okay. There you go. Okay, good. Beautiful action. So, hope this has been interesting to you, and have yourselves just an absolutely wonderful rest of your day. Bye now.